The indicators of a nation's wealth can vary from one ranking to another. Thus, the differences among them, but often includes a country's gross domestic product, or GDP, goods and services produced by a country during 1 year. The GDP per capita, the average amount of money that each person in a country earns in a year, or the gross national income. Here's a list of 10 wealthiest nations in the world. 10. San Marino. San Marino is a country in southern Europe and the self-acclaimed world's oldest republic. San Marino is among the smallest countries in Europe, with a land area of just about 61 square kilometers. San Marino has seen economic growth over the years. The country's economy relies heavily on tourism, banking, manufacturing, and exportation. The economy also benefits from foreign investments due to its low corporate tax rates. San Marino is a landlocked country but falls within the radar of the wealthiest countries in the world. It is a very developed country with a high standard of living and GDP per capita, which is comparable to most European Union states. Number 9. The USA. Did we say that the richest countries are also the smallest? This is not the case, of course, of the United States, which in 2020, during the early and worst phase of the pandemic, still managed to climb to the top 10 of the list after teetering on its edges for the best part of the last 2 decades. From March 2020 to May 2022, according to Forbes, the collective wealth of America's 727 billionaires leaped up by $1.7 trillion during the pandemic. They now hold over 4 times more wealth than roughly 165 million Americans in the society's bottom half. Number 8. Norway. Since the discovery of large offshore reserves in the late 1960s, Norway's economic engine has been fueled by oil. As Western Europe's top petroleum producer, the country has benefited for decades from rising prices. Furthermore, when it comes to any economic problem fate might throw at them, Norwegians can always count on their $1.2 trillion sovereign wealth fund, the world's largest. Yet, Norwegians know that with great wealth comes great responsibility. Unlike many other rich nations, high per capita GDP figures are truly a reflection of people's financial well-being. Since Norway has amongst the lowest income inequality gaps in the world. Number 7. UAE. Agriculture, fishing, and trading pearls. These used to be the economic mainstreams of this Persian Gulf nation. Then, oil was discovered in the 1950s and everything changed. Today, its highly cosmopolitan population enjoys considerable wealth. Traditional Islamic architecture mixes with glitzy shopping centers, and workers come from all over the world lured by tax-free salaries. The United Arab Emirates economy is also becoming increasingly diversified. Outside the traditionally dominant hydrocarbon sector, tourism and construction, as well as trade and finance, are major industries. This is not to say that the Emirates were not impacted by the pandemic and the concomitant fall of oil prices. The country, in fact, briefly slipped out of the IMF ranking of the richest countries globally for the first time in decades. However, despite the rumors of their imminent demise, fossil fuels have not gone out of fashion. As soon as their prices recovered, the United Arab Emirates regained its spot on the list of 10 richest countries in the world. Number 6. Switzerland. This country of about 8.6 million people owes much of its wealth to banking, insurance services, and tourism, as well as to exports such as pharmaceutical products, gems, precious metals, precision instruments, and machinery. Switzerland has the highest density of millionaires in the world. According to the latest global wealth report by Credit Suisse, 14.9% of the adult population owns assets worth more than $1 million. Since then, all these nations have mostly returned to pre-pandemic growth rates. Indeed, the IMF concluded growth suffered less due to a swift and sustained policy response through emergency spending and containment measures, but also as a result of the makeup of the Swiss economy itself. With its low dependency on contact-intensive sectors, competitive export industries, and solid public and household finances. Number 5. Macau. When COVID struck, global traveling came to a halt, and for a while, Macau even slipped out of the 10 richest nations ranking. To this day, Macau is the only country on the list whose per capita purchasing power is lower than it was before the start of the pandemic. About $125,000 in 2019, down by $40,000 today. Macau has relied so far on tourists visiting from mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Then, this year, just when the summer holiday travel season was about to begin, a new outbreak led to a citywide shutdown. Amid low foot traffic and closures, it has been estimated that the local casino industry loses about $20 million a day. Number 4. Qatar. The per capita GDP of a Qatari citizen was over $143,222 in 2014. It was just $97,846 lower a year later, and to this day, it remains closer to this level than to its highs. Still, the country's oil, gas, and petrochemical reserves are so large, and its population so small, just 2.8 million, that this marvel of ultra-modern architecture, luxury shopping malls, and fine cuisine has managed to top the list of the world's richest nations for 20 years. Number 3. Ireland. Ireland is among the richest economies measured by GDP per capita, below Luxembourg. It has a smaller population than New York, but still, it has become a go-to place for international businesses like Apple and Microsoft, which place their eastern headquarters on this tiny island. Ireland is one of the world's largest corporate tax havens, with ordinary people benefiting far less than multinationals do. And while they are undoubtedly better off than they were used to be, according to data, the national household per capita disposable income is slightly lower than the overall 38-member country's average, with a considerable gap between the richest and the poorest. That being, the top 20% of the population earns almost 5 times as much as the bottom 20%. Most families would balk at the idea that they are wealthy. Number 2. Singapore. With an estimated net worth of $23 billion, restaurateur Zhang Yong is the richest person living in Singapore. Singapore is an affluent fiscal haven where capital gains and dividends are tax-free. When the city-state became independent in 1965, one half of its population was illiterate. With virtually no natural resources, Singapore pulled itself up by its bootstraps through hard work and smart policy, becoming one of the most business-friendly places in the world. Today, Singapore is a thriving trade, manufacturing, and financial hub. Most importantly, 98% of the adult population is now literate. This is not as saying that it has been immune from the effects of the global downturn. In 2020, the economy plummeted a record 5.4%, knocking the country into recession for the first time in more than a decade. That decline, however, did not last long. In 2021, the GDP bounced back to 7.6%, while this year's growth should reach about 4%. Number 1. Luxembourg. Luxembourg is a small, landlocked country located in Western Europe and bordered by Belgium, France, and Germany. With a population of 642,371, Luxembourg is the only Grand Duchy in the world. Its GDP per capita of $140,694 makes it the world's richest. The unemployment rate is just over 5%, and the average life expectancy is 82 years. Healthcare, education, and public transportation are all free for the citizens. The government of Luxembourg is stable and efficient, and the country enjoys political and economic stability and a high standard of living. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, click the subscribe button, like, share, and do comment down below.